What do you think you could go in a 150 long course?
I would have no idea about times for it, but I think I would have no idea. But I think that I would go pretty well, or would have at least 4 years ago as well. I would have been very good. Like 2019, I reckon 150 freestyle would have been my bread and butter.
Welcome to Social Kick. I'm Brian Lundquist. We got the full crew: Dr. John Mullen, Luke Paddington, and the man, King Kyle. What's going on, buddy? How are you?
I'm very good. I'm very good. Just adapting to life without training at the moment. So it's quite challenging, I think, not having a routine. So this is a early morning for me at the moment. So 9 a.m., it's quite nice getting up and getting stuck into having something to look forward to for the day. So thanks for having me on.
Yeah, well, thanks for getting up early. I'd imagine you seem like a guy who's got a lot of other things going on, and we'll kick it off with some easy ones because we poll our audience anytime we have a guest on and ask them what they want to know from Kyle Chalmers. So first, this one's from Fraulein Bryn wants to know: do you have a koala in your backyard?
We actually do get koalas here very regularly. So I've moved up into the Adelaide Hills now. So that was part of the pull coming up here, was just the beautiful native wildlife that kind of roams through where we are. So kind of get kangaroos at the end of our road in the national park, but then koalas are frequently coming into our backyard and out in our front yard all the time. So I have a heap of gum trees and they're there regularly. So yes, I do.
Man, that is the coolest thing ever. All right, Chase O.S. Jackson wants to know: how was the sleeping arrangement on the cardboard beds in Paris?
Completely fine for me. We had the same situation in Tokyo. So I think I'm round 2 of the cardboard beds. So for me, I was expecting it and knew exactly what to expect. So I think it's just, there's a lot of people, I guess, finding things to complain about or be negative about. But for me, you're on an all expenses paid trip to France for the Olympic Games, free accommodation, free bed, free everything. So for me, I'm just grateful to be there, and there was no complaints on my end. I just, really enjoyed the experience.
Sure. Yeah. This one's from Kai Hu Han Lung Fu. Wow, that was a lot. Thoughts on Cam's training method, and will you transition to swim only the 50 when you're older?
Yeah, I don't know too much about it, if I'm completely honest with you. It would be a lie for me to sit here and say that I know exactly what he's doing, and yes, I want to do that, because I have no idea. I'm a person that completely focuses on myself and what I need to do, and I've been doing the same thing now for, a long time, really, probably the last 12 years, really, similar training sessions under the guidance of the same coach. So for me, I'll stick to what I know works and what I've had a lot of success doing. Obviously, I swim the 100 freestyle, Cam swims a 50 freestyle. My strength is my back end. I think if there was a race that was 150 meters, that would probably be my absolute bread and butter. But for now, I need to do exactly what I know works for me.
Yeah, fair enough. All right. Well, on the lighter side, maybe this is speaking to your not so early mornings nowadays. This one's from Mitch Irvine 11 wants to know: why were you at Macca's at 2 a.m. last night?
No, I wasn't at Macca's at 2 a.m. last night. Last night was a Sunday night. The night before, though, I did have a friend's birthday party. So my mate turned 26, so we had a bit of a birthday celebration and did end up at Macca's. I didn't get any Macca's, unfortunately, though, but was there.
I was just making light. Sometimes we didn't know if you know some of these people that submit questions, so well, we'll leave it to that. And besides that, I got a bunch of questions about doping too, which we're not going to get into. That's a whole separate thing. But on that point, Luke had a question for you.
Yeah, dude. I mean, you're an Australian. You won the 100 freestyle when you're 18 years old. Australia swimming is king. 100 free is a marquee event, at least for us. And you experience a massive rise in Australia and a lot of pressure as an 18-year-old, as the king of swimming as an 18-year-old. What advice would you give Pan now that he's probably facing a 19-year-old? A lot of pressure and a swimming in a country that's sports crazy. What advice, if you had one piece of advice for this young swimmer who's suddenly at the front of China's spotlight for sporting?
Yeah, I guess everyone has to learn and navigate themselves and go through the highs and lows that are going to come. Like for me, I went away as an unknown 17-year-old to the Olympic Games for my first Olympics, had no idea what it meant to be an Olympian, and then kind of came home a national hero there for a while. And opportunities that come with that, like sponsorship or, people stopping you for photos and signatures and all these things you've just never had to deal with. You get, put into straight away and expected to know how to deal with it. So I'm sure he's going to struggle for a while as he navigates and works through it. But I guess the piece of advice is that everyone has to go through it if you have success. So just kind of allowing yourself to realize that there's going to be challenges. It's not all going to be easy. So just ride the highs, ride the lows, and you'll come out a better person at the end of it, and you'll know so much more about yourself when you come out the other side. So to be fair, Australia would be completely a very small scale what he's about to go through and what he's going to have to navigate with the population and, like you said, the sports crazy world China is. But yeah, I guess it's just surrounding yourself with a really good team. I think luckily China's obviously had a fair bit of success in swimming or sport in the past. So I'm sure that there's some athletes over there that he can draw strength and have as mentors and whatnot. But I mean, he can always send me a message and I can do my very best to help. But yeah, it is always a challenge.
Cheers.
Yeah, I was telling the guys before we got on, the first thing that I wrote on our notes page in prep for this conversation was, holy shit, Kyle Chalmers is only 26. And
Exactly.
it's just like, man, and it was a reminder of how much success he found at a high level at a really young age, and that how uncommon that is, that like, anybody who's watching, you as an elite performer over a period of time, it seems like you've lived a long swimming life. And you have, and I think you've got the body to show for it too, with a lot of the injuries and health issues you've navigated. But like, man, knowing, at that time that you could live as much life as you could in swimming, just during a short, basically 3 quad period is, I'm sure even you had no idea at that moment when you won Olympic gold that it was like that what was to transpire in the next 8 years to follow.
Yeah, it's crazy. Especially I grew up following Aussie rules football and desperate to play Aussie rules football. Never really saw myself becoming an Olympic athlete. So I guess being there in Rio, I really didn't know what it meant to be an Olympian, which I think played into my favor because I was able to have success because it just was another competition for me. And I was so naive and probably just expected myself to win because it was another competition and I'd always done pretty well at swimming. So it wasn't, I guess until I come home and started to realize what it actually meant to be an Olympian, what it actually meant to be an Olympic gold medalist and the challenges they wasn't all just challenges, but it was definitely a big whirlwind experience for me. And then 2017, I had to sit out. Mental health was no good. I had heart surgery, and that was a real kind of reality check for me, I think. And then, did my very best to get back. And it took a little while. Like 2018, I lost at Commonwealth Games, which was at a home Commonwealth Games in the 100 freestyle, which was a hard pill to swallow, but then went on to win at Pan Pacs a couple months later. And then from there, kind of refound my feet in swimming and learned a lot about myself, I think. And I think early on the highs were high and the lows were low, but I think I've been able to kind of balance it out a little bit and kind of ride it a bit more. And I do feel like as I've now got closer to Paris, I've been through so many massive challenges that whatever gets thrown my way now, I feel like I'm capable or equipped to deal with, like whether it's surgeries, mental health problems. Obviously lost my coach before Paris this year, which was really hard. Obviously then had China turn against me while I was over at the Olympic Games. And I just feel like every challenge you have to deal with as an athlete, I've had to deal with. I've had the media turn against me and I've had to deal with at the extreme ends. Like they've been very, very big challenges that I've had to rise above and overcome. So I do feel leading into LA now that I have been through pretty well every challenge that could be possibly thrown at me. So I think that this next 4 years should be a little bit smoother in terms of I can draw on that experience and know that I've been through challenge X before. This is how I've dealt with it before. I know my body bounces back. I know my mind bounces back, and I find a way to swim well at the major competition. But again, it is never easy. And 2016, Kyle definitely didn't see these challenges coming in the 8 years leading into Paris. But But I'm glad that I had to go through all of that, because it's made me a better person and it's made me more resilient. And I feel I've grown so much as a person and as an athlete since 2016. So I'm really grateful that I've been dealt the cards I've been dealt.
You know, I want to, so a lot to unpack in that, Kyle. And I want to tell you stuff that you know already, but maybe the audience doesn't know. I'm going to lead to a question. You've done something that only the Duke and Popov have done, you know, medal at 300 freestyles in a row. You focus on the 100 freestyle. Each of them, you come home in 24-4, 24-4, 24-4. You specialize in 100 freestyle. The 100 freestyles on, Kyle Chalmers is there. For every world championships, for short course, for long course. Do you think you've got through these 8 years because you just focus? I'm a filmmaker and I can make any kind of film, but I was told, Luke, focus on your one strength and be the best at it. Focus on that one kind of thing that you do and be good. We got so many events in swimming, so many ways to do it. Is that you just focus on who you are and got to know who you are and you do what you do best, and that's how got you to where you are? You know, you're 100 freestyle, you're Kyle Chalmers.
For sure. And I think it's not even the 100 freestyle focus on, it's focus on the back end 50, because that is really my strength, is the second 50 of the 100 freestyle. And I think there's been points, especially over these last couple of years, where I've got distracted and started trying to swim front ends and be out faster, and then I die, and I don't get the best out of myself. So for me, yes, it's been focused completely on the 100 freestyle, but in that race, focus solely on the back end. And even this year at trials, I was out in 22, and then my back end was terrible. And speaking to my coach, Peter Bishop, on the phone, it was kind of like, you've just got to do what works for you. The race that you've been swimming since 2016 is going to be enough to deliver, hopefully, a medal at the Olympic Games. So focus on that. Like, your bread and butter is to be out in 23.0 seconds and back in 24.5. Like, that's always been my goal. And I know that that's always helped me have success in the race, is focusing on the race plan that I work on every single day of the week. So 24.4, I didn't know that I'd been back in that all three Olympics. but that is a cool stat. I remember 2016 was when we first kind of came up with that race plan of, we sat down after our Olympic trials, me and my coach, and we said, if I can be out in 23.0 seconds and back in 24.5 seconds, that would be enough to make the Olympic final. That was my goal. And then we trained that way every single day leading into it, like pushing 24.5 as consistently as possible. And then that race plan, I think, is just stuck for me ever since. Like, there's been times where I've gone out a little bit faster, or there's times I've been out a little bit slower probably, and still come back in the same sort of time. So I'm very lucky now that I've done it for the last 8 years, that I can pretty well switch off the mind when it comes to racing, and the body just takes control.
Yeah. You nailed those splits. I mean, you were 23.0, 8th at the 50 at Paris, and then back home in 24.4, like Luke said, Mr. Consistency. But like you said, it must take a lot of mental strength to know, all right, people are going out faster than me. I'm, last at the 50. I don't know where you're at, but you're not in front.
He was last in Paris. He was last at the 50.
Yeah, we got it, Luke. You don't need to rub it in, all right? but what's going through your mind when the other athletes are going out faster as you're making that turn?
Again, it's just probably experience. Like, I remember Rio, I turned and I had Santo Condorelli next to me, and he was a body length and half in front of me at the 50. So in that moment, that probably stressed me out, because that was my first time experiencing that. But now I can draw, like everyone kept saying to me in Paris, oh, you were 8th at the turn, like we thought you were out of it, whatever. And I was going, well, last year at the World Championships, I turned equal 7th, so pretty much 8th or last. Like, there's been so many times in my career where I've been in that position that I know and I trust myself that I have the ability to be able to swim over the top of people. And that's what I work so hard for every day in training. Like, I do train probably more as a 200 swimmer that comes down to the 100. So I back that I have enough fitness and I train enough lactate that I'm able to, swim through that lactic acid in that last, 15, 20 meters when people are starting to die a bit. I'm able to rise above, and I love that feeling. But obviously this year was a bit different. It was like the first time in my career I've ever been a body length behind with 15 meters to go. And that stressed me out a lot. I thought that I was coming dead last, and I'd had the worst race of my swimming career because I didn't believe that Pan could be in front of the whole field by a body length. But yeah, what an incredible swim. So for me, yeah, it's always been just about trusting myself. I swim pretty well with my eyes closed. You know, you like scrunch your face up in hard work. So I don't really know where I am. I have a few looks here and there, but it's just about swimming my race plan and what works for me.
You mentioned people always have stuff to complain about with the cardboard beds. Another huge conversation point was the pool depth. Did that enter your mind at all going into the race, knowing, okay, I'm going to be coming back on people. I'm 7th or 8th at the 50, very common. Is it going to be harder to make your way through the waves, or you just had confidence in your plan and that you've done it before?
Yeah, again, it's something I don't think about. I swam in the competition pool once before the competition started, and I remember diving in for the first time, and obviously normally when I dive in a 3-meter pool, you can go pretty deep, and I went pretty close to the bottom there. But it's not something that I've ever thought about, is the depth of the pool, really. And I know that some of my best ever races have been in relays where there's been so many waves and we're always behind the Australian team, or short course world championships in relays where it's just a full wash pool out there. So I really thought that it played into my favour being, well, everyone at the start of the meet was saying a slow pool. I was like, perfect, that's great. I'll be good in a slow pool. Obviously, there's 3 guys with a faster PD than me, so that plays into my favour. And then going into the final, especially, I was in lane 5 and I was breathing towards Popovici, Pan, Jack Alexi, so the 3 guys that had a faster personal best time than me. So I'm a person that sees the positives in everything. So it's kind of, I try to be, you know, oh yeah, this is fantastic. This all plays into my favour. This is my race, sort of thing. And that's my mindset that I like to have in the marshalling room and in the lead up to the race. So that's what I was thinking.
I don't know what the Aussie expression is for tough as nails or tough as curse word, but that's Kyle Chalmers, dude. Like, anybody who swam knows what lactic feels like. Anybody who swam the 100 freestyle knows what last 15 meters feels like. And I was always impressed by Nathan putting his head down, doing a windmill for his last 15. You know, Sarah can do, you know, no breather last 25. But when Kyle Chalmers is coming back on you and has just had ankle surgery, wins Olympic gold medal, has ankle surgery 8 years later and gets a silver medal, has cortisone shots in your back, has shoulder surgery, has so much physical struggles, and comes back, dude, you're one tough MF, man. Like, what is that about you? Is it your dad and the Aussie rules? Is it just like, I don't care, or you just? I pushed my body so hard once that I passed out underwater, right? Doing swims. And it scared me so much, I didn't want to push my body that hard again, because I was afraid of where I might go. You take your body places that people can't go normally. How is that, Cal? Dude.
Definitely resilience. I think the ankle at the end of last year really stressed me out a bit because I was this time last year, I had surgery on my ankle when I was in a moon boot and crutches for 6 weeks, and obviously couldn't kick, and kick's a pretty big strength of mine. So pretty much the end of last year was a pretty big write-off for me, and that was leading into the Olympic year. So I thought that I'd probably stuffed it a bit, but I think, yeah, I've got a lot of resilience, and it's been built up over so many years of swimming in my career now that I get to the Olympics and I completely forget about the ankle, or I forget about my shoulders and my back, or whatever's kind of going in my life. Like, as soon as I stand behind the blocks, I'm a racer and I'm a competitor, and all I want to do is win. So everything gets pushed aside. And like you said, I love that when the lactate's hitting you so hard that you can hardly move your arms, or your arms want to slow down. It's like a mental challenge to rise above. It's like, let's go. And to be fair, of late as well, like I've become obsessed with the UFC of late, and watching those guys in the cage, like, I think also makes me have more resilience in the pool. Like, I don't know if you guys watched UFC 300, but there was like Max Holloway versus Justin Gaethje. It went for 25 minutes, the BMF title, it's called, like the baddest motherfucker title. And that last, like, Max Holloway was clearly winning. In the last 10 seconds, he's called Justin Gaethje into the middle of the octagon, and they're both physically exhausted, beat up, and they start swinging each other until Gaethje got knocked out in the last 1 second of the fight. And I think that's how I like to. Now that's put so much, I've given that's so much respect for that now makes my world or my sport or my training sessions not seem all that hard. Like I'm in a very controlled environment. I'm in the pool in my own lane. I'm not dealing with some guy smashing me up. But I draw so much resilience from that, or so much, from that moment that I take into my own sport and my own training. And I'm like, I want to be the BMF, and I want to be Max Holloway, and let's go. Like, let's stand in the middle of the octagon and bang. Like, let's go in the pool. So for me, that's probably where my mindset is at now. It has been the last 6 months. And I think you've got to, as an athlete, draw inspiration from different avenues or different reasons. And that was mine this year.
Kyle, I don't know how I would have coached you. You guys remember Monty Python? Monty Python had a skit, and this guy's fighting, right? And he gets his arm chopped off. He's like, I'm going to keep fighting. He gets his leg chopped off. He kept fighting till he had no arms and legs. He's like, I'll get you. And the guy couldn't move. When you were on the Amazon Prime series before Tokyo, I remember seeing scenes of you talking to Bish, and you were injured. You couldn't move your shoulder. And you're like, no, I got to work out. I got to go in the water. I got to train. And he's like, no, chill. Just rest for a day. And you're like, no, I got this. How's that balance? How's that balance like the short-term gain for long-term, problems? Like the balance when you and your coach of like, guys, I can get this. No, Kyle, chill. Or, okay, I trust you. That's hard, right?
It is hard. And I think having 13 years with Bish, he knows me very well when it's, when I'm in pain, when I'm not in pain. And if I'm mentioning that, I'm a bit sore today, then he takes that very seriously, because normally I wouldn't say anything. I'd just find a way to get through. But I have complete trust and faith in him as a coach also, that if he says, let's not go today, you can't go, focus on getting your shoulder right, then I trust that that's the best decision for me on that day. But he's also got a physio background also. Like he was a physio, and now he's a full-time swimming coach. So I think he's able to make pretty good calls based on that as well. But I am a person that likes to find a way to get through every training session, and I hate missing training. I hate missing main sets. Nothing makes me more upset than sitting on the sideline watching my teammates go through main sessions, and especially through that. When I had my first shoulder done in 2020, that was probably the toughest time for me, because in March was when I hurt my shoulder, and then they were kept cortisoning, trying to find where it was injured pretty much. So trial and error. So let's go into the shoulder joint. Oh, that's not making any better. Let's go into the bursa. That's not making it any better. Let's go into the AC joint. That's not. So they pretty much monthly were almost doing a cortisone to see whether that was the problem. And then I got taken up to the Gold Coast, and they were doing where you take out some blood, spin it in a machine, and then insert it back into the subscap. I forget what that's called. And that healed my subscap, but it wasn't until November where they finally decided that surgery was the option. So the end of 2020 in November was when I had my shoulder operated on. But that period, that 9-month period, I was doing face down snorkel kick pretty much twice a day. So I might do 6 to 8 Ks of kick every day, watching my teammates train, do what I was desperate to do, watch them race, put their racing suits on, do time trials. And it was so challenging for me, because all I desperately wanted to do was be there and be a part of it. And when I filmed that Amazon Prime documentary, that was January or February or March even, I think, of 2021, so the lead up to the Olympic Games. And by March, like, I still had hardly done any swimming. I was still rehabbing my shoulder, and I had no muscle definition because I hadn't been able to do anything in the gym or hadn't been able to swim at all. And that was probably the toughest surgery or toughest injury that I'd ever had to go through, because it was pretty well 1 year of sitting on the sidelines, not being able to do what I wanted to do. And I was able to then go back, make it back to the Olympic Games, which was a huge deal. And then to win a silver medal in Tokyo I reflect on my best race in my swimming career, and the moment I'm so proud of, because I had to go through so much to be there, and to swim a personal best time in the Olympic final after the year I'd had has given me so much confidence, and I think is why I've had so much success in the last 3-year period, is because of that moment. Like, nothing I go through now is going to be more challenging than what I had to go through then. And if I was able to swim a personal best time after that preparation, I've truly believed I could achieve anything, really. So I think that's helped me with my mindset massively. And from that moment, up until Paris, I think I went pretty well. Undefeated in the 100 freestyle across, World Cups, ISL, World Short Course, Commonwealth Games, World Championship Long Course last year. I didn't lose the 100 freestyle. So, it was a very good run and something that I'm super proud of. And I think that I have drawn so much from that experience in Tokyo.
Yeah.
All right, 6 to 8K, head down, snorkel kick.
Fun.
What's the worst song in your head?
That is the worst. Like, there is nothing worse. I hate kick as it is. I think I hate kick even more now because of that.
Oh, yeah.
that
Hey,
having
hang
your
on.
snorkel
Social
on-
kicks. The social kick's cool though. Yeah.
social kick at the end of the session with flippers on, I'm happy to do, but doing it with a snorkel on with your face underwater, obviously coming in at different times to your teammates, it was the worst. But I remember being with my assistant coach at the time and having to do the kick session to be like, just give me 8 500s on short rest kick with my snorkel on just to get through it. So it was like I was doing it the most boring way possible as well. But yeah, I don't know, music-wise, probably not too much music-wise, probably just me just having negative thoughts in my own head saying how much I hate this and don't want to do it and it's all too much really. But I remember the squad doing a suit-up time trial session and me being so desperate to be a part of it that I did either a 400 kick or an 800 kick short course with a suit on, but still hands by side snorkel, and made sure everyone sat there and watched me after I'd spent 9 months watching them on the sidelines. So I had some fun with it, but I really hope I have to never go through something like that again.
Honestly, I bet some of the para athletes would be able to give you a run for your money and something like that. That's something to think about.
Absolutely, and they would absolutely dominate me in that too.
Yeah. I'm surprised you made it back from that, actually, because John's a physio. John said whenever his athletes get to the level of injuries that you've had, he just says, put them down,
Exactly. Let them out of their misery. And then you're out there playing Australian rules football and being a construction worker on the side just for fun.
Exactly. I'm putting myself in situations to get more injured.
That's what I'm thinking. I'm like, come on, your coach is a physio. He must kind of crack the whip on you.
Yeah.
He's good, but he also understands, for me last year going home to Port Lincoln, where I grew up in country South Australia, and playing a game of football was so important to me that when I called him on the Monday and said, I've hurt my ankle, he, I guess, somewhat expected it and was completely fine with it because I was devastated. Whereas he was like, I guess you can't really say anything else in that situation. Like, what's done is done. But he was, very supportive of me and got me through that period again. So at least that was an easy fix. It was like, get the MRI. I did all my syndesmosis ligaments, so I had no ligaments in between my two bones holding my ankle together. So every time I stepped, they were parting my bones. I did my midfoot, and then my big toe, I broke a little bit and then did my tendons. So now I've got no flexion in my big toe. So when I walk, I roll my ankle to the side now because I can't step over my big toe. So I really did the best possible job of hurting my foot/ankle last year that I could do.
Jeez, man, I thought Luke was old, but you're a trip hazard, man. You have any you gotta be careful walking around your house. You're gonna fall down and break a hip, I think.
Absolutely, that's probably the next thing.
Oh shit.
Do you ever think about the benefits that could come from the fact that you're not training full seasons, it seems like, for 8 years? I mean, on one hand it's there's the mental resilience to be able to come back from any of those types of things that you mentioned, but I also wonder too, sometimes people just get way overtrained and and are getting this big trough, and maybe it's allowed you to just be a little bit more focused, intentional, that you've got to make every rep count, sort of thing. Do you ever think about it that way?
I haven't at all until right then when you've mentioned that, but I think I still find a way to be at the pool. Even with my ankle last year, as maybe 2-3 days after the surgery, I was back in the pool with a pool boy in, and I was just not doing turns. So I remember doing short course, just doing pool. So I still go to the pool and do as much as I can, but I do think that overtraining is a thing. I think for me, even looking at this year, from January 1st until the Olympic Games, I had such an amazing block of training, but I feel like at the end of February, we'd come back from a training camp in Malaysia, a 2-week intense training camp. And I feel like I was at the fittest I possibly was for the whole year. I was swimming so well in training. And then we raced in April at Nationals. I feel like if I tapered for Nationals this year, I would have done just as well as what I did in Paris. I was 47.6 in season in an outdoor pool and 21.9 in the 50s. So I swam PBs, swam amazing 100 that I do think. And then I went back to, like, you just kind of keep getting flogged and doing more blocks and more blocks and more training. And I think that if I, in an ideal world, especially again looking at the UFC, these guys find out they're fighting, then they do like an 8 to 12 week fight camp, and then they're fittest to fight. And I'm like, why can't I just go, train maybe 7 times a week, 12 weeks before national or just trials, just start to pick up to a normal schedule. And I truly believe by the time trials comes around, I'm mentally, emotionally, physically fresher. Yeah. And I think that I'd be at my fittest to race as well as I can. So it's something that I think that I might trial as I move forward, is training a bit more that way as I progress into getting closer to my 30. Well, I'll be 30 by the time LA rolls around. And if I realistically want to get there, I think that I have to look at something like that for sure, instead of doing 50K weeks, 50 weeks of the year. It's just not. I need to be a bit smarter, train smarter as I get older.
Well, so what are some of the things you're doing to fill the time when swimming's not at its peak and you're sleeping in?
Back on the building side, actually, today was supposed to be my first day back at work, but I double booked myself with doing podcast and then going to work. So I'll go back to this afternoon. I'm still massively into the reptiles, so I've got a heap of I still own a heap of pythons, so I'm going to go to my mate's house, which is just around the corner, and clean all the enclosures at his house, clean all the pythons, feed all the pythons, and then tomorrow I'll go back to work. So the next few days I'll go back to work on the work site. But it's a very easy time of the year to fill in your schedule with sponsorship commitments or guest speaking gigs and all these things that I've missed out on for such a long period of time. Like, I've been living out of a suitcase for the last 6 months. So I've pretty much had 8 days at home in the last 6 months now. So just being able to catch up with all my friends and family and be back in Adelaide and doing the things that I love to do, it is easy to fill in the schedule. And I'm a good sleeper. So for me, sleeping in the mornings and just trying to be Kyle Chalmers the human rather than Kyle Chalmers the athlete. So that's why I'm pretty happy going back to work site and getting pushed around. And no one cares probably too much about the Paris Olympics. As soon as I've got there and got that initial 20-minute conversation out of the way, it's back to sweeping the floors. So I'm looking forward to that.
What a boring life it would be if it was all about that anyway. Yeah. What's the long-term plan with is the critter thing just a hobby, or do you intend for it to be something bigger or different?
Well, for me, it was a big hobby. Like, obviously as a swimmer, it's very hard to work, or it's very hard to study when your training, probably 40 to 50 hours a week, is revolved around swimming, really. So for me, having the reptiles at home was the perfect escape, where I'd come home, feed animals, clean animals. They're very reliant on me, and it kind of gave me that identity away from the pool. But again, it's just been so hard over this last period to have them all, because I'm away so much. So I've had to move the reptiles on for the time being, but eventually I will get them back. And whether I take it seriously, like, there is a lot of money to be made in reptiles if you do it properly.
Can you flip them?
Yeah, for sure. If you're breeding it well, like, it used to be, I've been out of the game for a little bit now, but like an albino olive python, so olive pythons are Australia's biggest python. If you were to breed them, an albino olive python used to go for about 5,000 Aussie dollars, and they might have 30 babies a year. So if you're doing it right and breeding the right animals, you could make quite a lot of money out of it. But for me, when I was doing it, it was just a bit of a hobby and something that I was very passionate about and loved. And I grew up in country South Australia, so my weekends were spent catching lizards and snakes with my grandpa and on the farms and whatnot. So it was a good hobby and something that I'm keen to get back into.
Yeah, I'm sure a bunch of people would buy a Kyle Chalmers bred, albino python. Besides that, what about doing like a sexy calendar shoot with your pythons?
Chalmers pythons.
Well, there's a guy in Melbourne that constantly messages me about doing a shoot with python, literally all the time, and he's been desperate to come across to Adelaide and do the shoot to be, I guess, make it work for me. But if I'm really desperate for money one day, maybe it's something I'll think about.
No, you got to do it now in your prime.
True, actually, I agree.
Nothing about what I hear about your body makes me think it's going to hold on for that much longer, bro.
That's a good point. So maybe it is time to start thinking about those things.
Oh, my goodness.
I was watching Asterix and Obelix with my kids. I have young kids, and I'm watching. I'm like, that's Flo Manadou, and there's Flo Manadou standing up in this movie, just showing off his body. So yeah, people do what they
There you
do.
go.
Man.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah,
Cool
in
flow.
2016, Flo Manadou. Talking about Flo Manadou, man. To me, what's the secret to you always racing and being happy and never complaining? Kyle is always at a World Cup. He's always out at an event, and you're always happy and you're never complaining about your injuries. We don't know you were injured unless you mention it after the fact, but you're
Yeah.
always just trying to give back and be positive. Was that part of your health journey, of your mental health journey I'm talking about? Just trying to focus on Kyle the human, on being positive, on what's really important to you. It's not really this, but it's this.
For sure. And I think that I never like to mention injuries pre-race because I don't want to give myself an excuse or give myself an out. I think it's important that I talk about them after the race so people realize if they have to go through something like that, hey, Kyle had to do that, and they can kind of draw inspiration from me, or that, I've had to do it in the past. But I think that I'm just forever grateful for what the opportunities I get. Like if I'm at a World Cup, like what an amazing opportunity to be overseas racing against the fastest guys in the world in the sport that I love to do, and making friends. And I love those experiences so much. So for me, yeah. And everyone, like, again, with the living situations or bus schedules or whatever it is, like everyone's in that same situation. Like everyone's in the Olympic Village, like everyone's in the same beds, eating the same food, on the same buses to the pool. So I just think that there's no point in complaining about it. Like, fair enough if someone was in a 5-star hotel eating the greatest food of all time, getting a chauffeured limo to the pool or something, then maybe there's an opportunity to be upset about it. But I truly believe that the Paris Olympic Committee put on the best possible show that they possibly could for us, and we just have to be extremely grateful for that. Or if we're on the other side of the world and you're not having the exact same food as what you'd have at home, like, it's what you sign up for. So for me, living with gratitude is extremely important, and I love my job. I love my lifestyle. I love being able to travel around the world swimming and inspire the next generation of swimmers. I don't think there's any point in standing up and being negative about it, or like that's not going to encourage people to get into swimming or encourage people to come to the World Cups and watch and support us. So that's why I like to be positive. And my coach has always instilled that into me too. Like, it's always been an important value for us as a squad or a coach-athlete relationship.
I'll just add on to that the time that I had a chance to meet you in person was at the World Cup in Toronto, I think, and I was so impressed by the positivity that you exuded and the thoughtfulness that you had in answering questions in post-race interviews, and it really stood out even amongst your peers, such that it made an impression on me that then again is a part of the reason why I prepare for this show and say, holy shit, Kyle Chalmers is only 26, because you come across as such a great, not only ambassador for swimming, but also it's a great example for anyone you're around to just always be a stand-up person who's treating everyone with respect and giving thoughtful answers. And I mean, I think you probably just showcased this in a masterclass way with what you went through media-wise with, like Pan's comments and having to deal with media questions about your interpretation of like the way things went down, and then also being so encouraging in your follow-up things about like being willing to help. And I guess I just, it makes me wonder, have you always had that, besides coach instilling that in you or reinforcing that? Is there something back to, parents or anything? Is 18-year-old Kyle still that same, just like, really polished, genuine, good guy?
Yeah, I think I had to grow up very quickly. Obviously, as an 18-year-old coming back and having some success, and like, it doesn't, you swim, but you never get taught how to do media or taught how to deal with people asking for photos and signatures or, signing sponsorship contracts. You like get thrown into the deep end and you have to learn. And I think I found it very challenging to start with, especially if I was, to go out for dinner with my mates or be at McDonald's at 2 a.m. in the morning on a Saturday night. I want to have people coming up to me. Like, you have no choice but to deal with that in a positive way, because everyone's going to then be left with how they felt about you as a person, and I try my very best to be positive all the time. Obviously, there's times where I'm not, like if I'm leading into a competition and I'm trying to warm up for a race and people are coming up to me while I've got my headphones on trying to do dry land, I find it very challenging to stop what I'm doing and have a really positive interaction or conversation. But I tried my very best because, again, like at the end of the day, I do the same sort of thing. Like I'm a fanboy when I'm at the UFC in Perth last weekend. I'm going up to all these UFC fighters asking for photos and signatures and doing the exact same like full circle moment sort of thing 5 days after the Paris Olympics. Like, and, you know, I just respect that whether it's people on pool deck, staff-wise or media or volunteers or who it is, they're all sacrificing their time to be there for us. So we have to give back and be the role model and interact the way I'd want to be interacted with. And Toronto, I remember the Toronto World Cup, I was really sick there actually. So I was not in the best headspace, I think, at the Toronto World Cup. And I remember getting tickets to the Philadelphia 76ers versus Toronto Raptors game. And I was, because I'd done some stuff with the NBA earlier in the year, and I got tickets for my whole squad, maybe 8 tickets. And that day I woke up and I was really sick. I didn't train. My coach said, "You're not coming to the basketball. We've got to prepare to race." And I went, "This is a once in a lifetime opportunity. I've got to go." And he only let me go for the first half of the basketball. So I think in the Toronto World Cup, I actually wasn't the best version of Kyle Chalmers that I want to be every single day. But I think as soon as I get to the pool, I really try to be the best version I can be of Kyle Chalmers on that given day. So, but it's taken a long time to get to that point. And I think that I've had great family around me, great friends, and then a great coach who's mentored me right through. And my dad was a former athlete himself, like played professional Aussie rules football. So I think he's probably installed a lot of really good qualities and values into me from a very young age.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Well, appreciate it. I think you're doing a pretty damn good job. So we got a few rapid fires and we'll let you go. What's the hardest race in swimming?
Hardest race in swimming? I think the 800 freestyle for me, I've tried to do that the last 3 years at state championships and it kills me. I've done 200 flies and 200 other events or 400 freestyle, but the 800 freestyle is just so different. And I set myself the goal of trying to beat like Ariane Titmus and Lani Pallister, the 2 Aussie girls, personal best time. And I truly believed I was capable of doing that, but there's no way. Like they absolutely smashed me. So I think the 800 freestyle for me, in my experience of racing, is I would do the 200 butterfly every day of the week over that.
Did you lose any side bets with Lani or Ariane about that?
No, because I kept it pretty quiet and I'm still pretty embarrassed that they have a very much faster personal best time than I do. I think I was about 8:16.
Olympic gold or world record?
Olympic gold. I think Olympic gold is remembered forever, and I think that's something I took into the Paris Olympics was no one outside of maybe us and like the swimming community really remembers time. They remember who won the race. So if I walk down in public, they don't know me as a world record holder. They know me as a former an Olympic gold medalist from 2016. So Olympic gold for sure.
Yeah, no, you're always an Olympic gold medalist. All right, do you pee in the pool?
At training for sure, because I don't like getting out, missing training.
What do you think you could go in a 150 long course?
I would have no idea about times for it, but I think I would have no idea. But I think that I would go pretty well, or would have at least 4 years ago as well. I would have been very good. Like 2019, I reckon 150 freestyle would have been my bread and butter.
All right, let's throw it down. You and Popovich and Pan. I want to see it. All right, what are you reading, watching, or listening to right now? What kind of content are you into?
I'm actually watching Vikings for the third time. My fiance is Norwegian, but she's never watched Vikings, so I'm making her sit there and we're watching it from start to finish again. So, but I'm third time, but I'm probably South Park is my go-to. Like if I need to unwind or during competition, or South Park's just a very easy 20-minute watch. So I'd go for South Park.
All right, I know you love the UFC and other events. What's the best live sports or concert or anything live event? What's the best one you've ever been to?
UFC, hands down. Like I've been to like a Game 7 of the Western Conference Finals in the NBA. I've been to El Clasico, so Real Madrid versus Barcelona. Like I've been to some amazing sporting events, but UFC is just unmatched. Like the lights, the shows that they put on, the crowd atmosphere, the walkout songs, like it's what got me into it. Was going and watching that live in Sydney last year has just got me fully addicted to it. So I think everyone in their lifetime should experience a UFC fight. Like I'm going to Vegas next week to watch the next UFC fight, so 306. And then I'm considering going to Abu Dhabi for 308 in October too. So I'm just like, my life is just revolving around UFC every Sunday. So I'd suggest everyone gets involved.
Hell yeah. I hope you got sponsors taking you around to that. That's awesome.
No,
what's the best?
actually not, just me and some mates.
Well, shit, man, you got to get that going. All right. What's one thing in your swim bag you can't live without?
Fins. Fins is the most commonly used thing, and something I have to start a warm up with my fins on. I have to do a cool down with my fins on, and every opportunity I have, I want to put them on. So that's my number one.
What's the best swim from someone else you ever saw live?
That's really hard. I've watched some amazing swims. I mean, being next to Pan going 46.4 is pretty incredible, but I didn't get to sit there and watch that. I had to be a part of it. I think Milak's 200 butterfly in Budapest was incredible. Like, I swam the 100 fly at that competition and had a stinker, and he was out way faster through the 200 than I even was in the 100 butterfly at that competition, and then just did not die off. So I think any race that's a world record and you see a world record be broken live is unbelievable. Like, and I'm a massive swimming fan, so watching some of these races unfold, like especially the Australians of late, like Ariane versus Molly in the 200 freestyle, or Elijah versus Shorty in the 400 freestyle, and some of these competitions has been pretty cool to watch Australians battle it out.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, I know you hate kicking, but social kicking doesn't happen with a snorkel. So how often are you doing regular social kick in practice?
When I moved to the Sunshine Coast this year, it was probably the first time I've been allowed to do social kicking, and that's where it was actually written up on the board was social kick at the end of sessions. So before that, my coach would never let me do that. So now I've had 3 months experience of being a social kicker. It's going to be very hard to go back to not doing it. So I think it's going to be every day.
Hell yeah. Cool. All right. Well, every day it is. Well, hey man, thanks so much for hanging out with us. Enjoy the rest of your podcast day. Enjoy some of the time off. We look forward to seeing you the next time we get a chance to do so. So appreciate the time.
No, I appreciate it. Thanks so much for having me on.
All right, that's it for this episode of Social Kick. We'll see you guys next time. Hey everybody. Thanks for hanging out with us. If you're enjoying Social Kick, tell your friends about it. And be sure to tell us what you liked by leaving a comment, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on Instagram. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Social Kick, and you can find all of our content on our website at thesocialkick.com.